The space station Kepri Gate never truly slept. Its lights stayed bright even during artificial night cycles, and the sound of engines, footsteps, and distant announcements never stopped. It floated at the edge of human-controlled territory, a massive ring of metal connecting dozens of species through trade, law, and uneasy peace. Humans were still newcomers here. Among the crowds of tall, scaled beings, glowing-skinned merchants, and floating creatures held together by soft energy fields, humans looked small and fragile. Many aliens ignored them. Some looked down on them. A few watched them closely, unsure what to think. Elias Rowe walked through the lower market levels with a tool bag slung over his shoulder. He was tired. His shift repairing cargo drones had lasted almost 14 hours, and his hands still smelled of oil and burnt wiring. He wore a simple gray uniform with a faded human emblem stitched on the chest. Elias was not important. At least, that was how he saw himself. He was 26 standard years old, born on a mining colony that barely existed anymore. He had joined station maintenance because it paid enough to send credits back home. He did his work, followed the rules, and avoided trouble. On Kepri Gate, that was the best way for a human to survive. The market was crowded today. Trade cycles overlapped, and ships from several systems had arrived at once. Vendors shouted prices in strange languages. Holographic signs floated in the air. Security drones hovered above, their lenses glowing blue as they scanned faces and movement. Elias kept his eyes forward and walked carefully. He had learned long ago that humans were blamed first when something went wrong. As he passed a row of fabric stalls, he noticed a small alien woman standing near the edge of the crowd. She looked different from the others around her. Her skin was pale silver, smooth like polished stone. She was shorter than most aliens, even shorter than Elias. She wore simple dark robes and carried a small bag at her side, decorated with thin lines of light that shifted slowly. She seemed still, not calm, not relaxed, still like someone listening very carefully. Elias barely glanced at her before moving on. It was none of his business. Then everything happened at once. A sudden push rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted in a sharp alien tongue. Elias turned just in time to see a long-armed figure snatch the glowing bag from the woman's side. The thief moved fast, melting into the mass of bodies. For a moment no one reacted. The woman's head snapped toward the direction the thief had gone. Her eyes widened not in fear but in shock. She took one step forward, then stopped. Her hands clenched slowly at her sides. People around her turned away. Elias felt his stomach tighten. He knew that look. He had seen it before on humans who realized they were alone. A voice inside him said, "Don't get involved." Another voice, quieter but stronger, said, "Someone just stole her bag." Elias sighed under his breath and shifted his tool bag higher on his shoulder. "Damn it," he muttered. He pushed forward, breaking into a run. "Hey!" Elias shouted, though he knew the thief wouldn't stop. He chased the long-armed figure through the crowd, dodging carts and stepping over cables. The thief glanced back once, saw a human following, and made a sharp turn into a side corridor marked for station maintenance only. Elias followed without thinking. The corridor was narrow and dim, lit by red emergency strips along the floor. Pipes ran along the walls, hissing softly. The thief was fast, but Elias had spent years crawling through station guts like this. He knew the layout better than most. The thief turned left, then right, then tried to activate a sealed door. It didn't open. Elias skidded to a stop a few meters away. "Give it back," Elias said, breathing hard. "That doesn't belong to you." The thief hissed, clutching the bag tight. Its eyes were yellow and wide, pupils thin with panic. It pulled a small shock blade from its belt. Elias raised his hand slightly. He didn't have a weapon. "I don't want trouble," Elias said. "Just drop the bag." The thief lunged. Elias reacted on instinct. He grabbed a loose maintenance panel, yanked it free, and slammed it into the thief's arm. The shock blade clattered to the floor. The thief stumbled and Elias kicked the blade away. They struggled for only a few seconds. Elias wasn't stronger, but he was desperate. He twisted the thief's wrist, forcing the bag free, then shoved the alien backward. The thief hit the wall hard, cursed, and ran. Elias stood alone in the corridor, heart pounding. The bag hummed softly in his hands. For a moment he considered leaving it with security and walking away. That would be safer. But he turned and ran back toward the market. When he returned, the crowd had shifted again, as if nothing had happened. The alien woman still stood near the same spot, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. She looked up as Elias approached. He slowed, suddenly aware of how foolish he must look, sweaty, breathing hard, holding a glowing alien bag. "I think this is yours," Elias said, holding it out. She stared at the bag, then she looked at him. Up close, her eyes were strange, not just in color but in depth. Symbols shimmered faintly within them like reflections of moving text. "Yes," she said softly. Her voice was calm, smooth, and perfectly translated by Elias' implant. "That is mine." He handed it to her. She took it carefully as if confirming something important. When her fingers touched the bag, the light patterns changed, recognizing her. She looked back at Elias. "Why did you do that?" she asked. Elias shrugged, suddenly uncomfortable. "Someone needed help." "You knew the risk," she said. "Humans are often punished for interference." Elias gave a tired smile. "Yeah, I know." She studied him for a long moment, her head tilting slightly. "What is your name?" she asked. "Elias," he replied. "Elias Rowe." She nodded once, committing it to memory. "I thank you, Elias Rowe," she said. "Your action will not be forgotten." Before he could respond, 2 station security drones floated closer. Their lenses focused on Elias. "Human technician," a mechanical voice said. "You are requested for questioning regarding a disturbance in the market sector." Elias' heart sank. The woman stepped back, her face carefully neutral. She said nothing as the drones moved between her and Elias. Elias glanced at her once more. She met his gaze, her expression unreadable, then turned and walked away toward the restricted upper levels of the station. Elias was escorted through clean white corridors to a security holding room. He sat on a bench, hands folded, staring at the floor. He told himself it would be fine. He had done nothing wrong. Still, a familiar fear crept in. Hours passed. Finally, the door opened. 2 guards stood aside as Elias was led into a chamber unlike any he had seen before. The walls were dark and smooth, glowing faintly with embedded lights. Symbols floated in the air, shifting slowly. Several alien figures sat along the edges, watching silently. Elias swallowed. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform, and upon it stood the alien woman. She wore different robes now, marked with intricate glowing lines. A symbol hovered behind her, complex and ancient. Her eyes met Elias' S. "This session is now in order," her voice echoed through the chamber. Elias felt his blood run cold. Only then did he begin to understand that returning a stolen bag might cost him far more than he had ever imagined. Elias stood at the center of the chamber, his hands resting at his sides. The floor beneath his boots felt warm, almost alive. Soft light moved through the walls like slow breathing. He had never been inside a place like this. It did not feel like a prison, but it did not feel safe either. The alien woman looked down at him from the raised platform. Her posture was straight, calm, and controlled. The symbols behind her shifted and aligned, forming patterns Elias could not read. "This hearing concerns the actions of the human known as Elias Rowe," her voice said, steady and clear. "Those actions occurred in the public market of Khepri Gate during a regulated trade cycle." Elias swallowed. He forced himself to stand straight. Several other figures sat around the chamber. Some were tall and thin, with long necks and dark eyes. Others were heavy, armored beings whose faces were hidden behind breathing masks. A few were so strange that Elias could not even tell where their eyes were. He felt very small. A tall alien with deep blue skin stepped forward. Its voice carried a sharp edge. The human pursued a suspect into restricted corridors. He engaged in physical conflict. Under Accord law, such behavior may be classified as unauthorized enforcement. Elias opened his mouth, but the woman on the platform raised one hand. "He will speak when permitted," she said. The blue-skinned alien stepped back. The woman's gaze returned to Elias. "You are aware that humans remain under provisional status within this station," she said. "Your actions carry greater weight than you may realize." "Yes," Elias said quietly, "I know." "Then explain," she said. "Why did you act?" Elias hesitated. He had expected anger. "Punishment, not a question like this." "She was robbed," he said. "People saw it. No one did anything." "That is not an answer," another voice said. A broad, insect-like alien leaned forward. "Why did you, a human, intervene?" Elias took a breath. "Because it was wrong." A ripple of low sounds passed through the chamber. Some aliens shifted. Others remained perfectly still. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. "You did not know who she was." "No," Elias said. "You did not know what was in the bag." "No." "You did not know what laws you might be breaking." Elias met her gaze. "That's true." "Then why risk it?" she asked again. Elias' hands clenched slowly. He thought of the look on her face in the market, the stillness, the moment when everyone else turned away. "Because if I didn't," he said, "no one would." Silence filled the chamber. The woman studied him for a long time. Then she turned slightly toward the others. "The accused admits to violating regulated movement boundaries," she said. "However, intent remains under examination." A different alien stood. This one was tall and crystalline, its body refracting light. "Humans are known for impulsive behavior," it said. "They act first, consider consequences later. This pattern has caused conflict in multiple regions." "That is true," said another. "They escalate situations." Elias felt heat rise in his chest. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but he forced himself to stay silent. The woman raised her hand again. "We are not here to judge all humans," she said. "We are here to judge this one." She looked back at Elias. "When the thief threatened you, you had no weapon. Why did you continue?" Elias thought of the shock blade, the fear he had felt. "I didn't want to fight," he said. "I just wanted the bag back." "You could have retreated." "Yes, but you did not." "No, why?" Elias hesitated. Then he spoke honestly. "Because if I ran, the thief would escape, and she would lose something important." The woman's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the platform. "What if the bag contained nothing of value?" asked the blue-skinned alien. "That didn't matter," Elias replied. "Why not?" Elias looked around the chamber, at the watching faces, at the power they held. "Because it wasn't mine to judge," he said. "It was hers." A low murmur spread again. The woman turned her head slightly, listening to the reactions. Then she spoke. "The bag contained judicial seals and personal authority markers," she said. "If lost, it would have caused severe disruption." Several aliens stiffened. Elias blinked. He had no idea what that meant, but it sounded important. The woman continued. "The accused had no knowledge of this. His decision was not influenced by potential reward." She stepped down from the platform and walked slowly toward him. Each step echoed softly. "You are aware," she said, stopping a few feet away, "that I am High Arbiter Vilthera." "Yes," Elias said. I understand that now." "You understand that I am one of those evaluating humanity's future status." "Yes." "And yet," she said, "you did not attempt to appeal to me when you returned the bag." Elias frowned. "I didn't know who you were." "Even after security arrived," she said, "you did not accuse the thief loudly. You did not demand recognition." "I just wanted to go back to work," Elias said quietly. For the first time, something like emotion flickered across Vilthera's face. It passed quickly, but Elias saw it. She turned back toward the chamber. "You may question the accused further," she said. The crystalline alien stepped forward. "Human Elias Rowe," it said, "your species often claims moral reasoning. Yet humans also wage wars among themselves. Elias nodded. That's true. How can such a species be trusted within the Accord? Elias took a slow breath. We're not perfect, he said. We mess up a lot. That is not reassuring, the alien said. But we try, Elias continued. And sometimes we choose to do the right thing even when it costs us. Define right, another alien said. Elias looked down at the floor, then back up. Helping someone who needs it, he said, even if they're not like you. The chamber grew quiet again. Velthira raised her hand and the questioning stopped. The accused will remain under observation, she said. This hearing will recess while deliberation occurs. Two guards approached Elias and guided him from the chamber. He was led to a small waiting room. The door sealed behind him with a soft sound. The room was clean, simple, and empty except for a bench and a wall display showing slow-moving stars. Elias sat down heavily. His hands shook now that the adrenaline was gone. He replayed the chase again and again in his mind. He wondered if he should have walked away. If this was the moment his life fell apart, time passed strangely. Minutes felt like hours. The door opened. Velthira entered alone. Elias stood quickly. High Arbiter, he said. Sit, she said gently. He obeyed. She stood across from him, her hands folded in front of her. Without the crowd and symbols, she looked smaller, still powerful, but more real. You are afraid, she said. Yes, Elias admitted. That is reasonable, she said. Many would be afraid in your position. She studied him carefully. Do you regret your action? Elias thought for a long moment. No, he said finally. I'm scared, but I don't regret it. Even now, she asked. Even now? Velthira nodded slowly. Among my people, she said, status and law define worth. Acts without calculation are rare. She looked at him directly. Your species acts before certainty. This is seen as a flaw, she paused, but it may also be a strength. Elias didn't know what to say, so he stayed silent. I will return to the council, she said. Your fate is not yet decided. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. One more thing, she said without turning around. If you could choose again, knowing who I am, would you still run? Elias answered without hesitation. Yes. Velthira stood very still. Then she left. Elias was alone again, staring at the stars on the wall, unaware that his simple answer was already spreading through minds far more powerful than his own. The chamber was full again. Elias stood in the same place as before, but everything felt different now. He was no longer shaking. Fear was still there, deep in his chest, but something else stood beside it, calm acceptance. Whatever happened next was no longer in his control. The council members returned to their seats one by one. Their movements were slow and deliberate. Some avoided looking at Elias. Others watched him closely, as if he were a puzzle they had not expected to face. High Arbiter Velthira stepped onto the raised platform. The symbols behind her shifted, forming a new pattern, balanced, symmetrical, final. This session resumes, she said. Deliberation has concluded. Elias lifted his chin slightly. A low murmur passed through the chamber and then faded. Human Elias Rowe, Velthira continued, you stand accused of unauthorized pursuit, engagement, and interference under Accord regulation. Elias nodded once. Yes. By strict interpretation of the law, she said, you are guilty. The words hit him like a cold wave. He did not react. He had prepared himself for this. Several council members shifted, satisfied. But, Velthira said, and the room stilled instantly, law is not judgment. Law is a tool. She raised one hand and new symbols appeared in the air, records, timelines, data streams. This case has revealed something beyond procedural violation, she said. It has revealed intent. She looked directly at Elias. You acted without authority, she said. Without protection, without promise of reward. You acted knowing punishment was likely. Yes, Elias said. Why? She asked one final time. Elias answered the same way he had before. Because someone needed help. Velthira turned to the council. Among most Accord species, she said, Intervention occurs only when benefit outweighs risk. Calculation is considered wisdom. She paused. Humans calculate differently. A tall, armored alien leaned forward. They are reckless. Yes, Vilthera said calmly, they can be. Another spoke. They cause instability. They do, she agreed. And yet, she continued, this same trait drives them to face danger for strangers, to protect without command, to act where others hesitate. The chamber was silent. This human did not know who I was, Vilthera said. He did not know the value of what he protected. He did not seek recognition. She let the words settle. He saw wrongdoing, she said, and he moved. She turned back to Elias. For this reason, she said, the council issues a judicial exception. Gasps and sharp clicks echoed through the chamber. The accused will not be punished, Vilthera said. His record will reflect context and moral intent. Elias' breath caught. But the consequence does not end there, she continued. She raised her hand again and a larger projection appeared. Human colonies, trade routes, conflict markers. This action, Vilthera said, has informed our evaluation of humanity as a whole. Elias' heart pounded. Humans are not the strongest, she said. They are not the oldest, they are not the most disciplined. Some council members nodded. But they possess a dangerous trait, she said. They act. She faced the chamber fully now. When systems fail, when law hesitates, when authority freezes, Vilthera said, humans move. She lowered her hand. For this reason, she said, I submit a recommendation. The symbols shifted again. Humanity's provisional status will be lifted, she said. They will be recognized as an independent accord member with conditional responsibilities. The chamber erupted. Voices rose in protest and surprise. Some council members stood, others argued sharply. Vilthera did not raise her voice. Order, she said, and the chamber obeyed. This recommendation is not based on power, she said. It is based on character. She looked at Elias one last time. This hearing is concluded. The symbols faded. The lights softened. Elias stood frozen, barely able to understand what had just happened. A guard gently touched his arm. You are free to go. He walked out of the chamber in a daze. The corridors felt brighter now, wider, as if the station itself had changed. By the time Elias reached the public levels, news had already spread. Screens showed headlines in multiple languages. Humans around the station stared at them in disbelief. One screen showed Vilthera's words translated clearly. They act when others do not. Elias slipped through the crowd quietly and returned to the maintenance sector. He changed out of his uniform, washed his hands, and sat alone in the break room. He expected to feel proud. Instead, he felt tired. A message appeared on his wrist display from Station Administration. Human security officers were treated with more respect. Humans were invited into planning meetings they had never been allowed to attend before. Some aliens watched them warily now. Others watched with curiosity. Elias returned to his normal routine. He repaired drones. He replaced cables. He drank bad station coffee. Most people didn't know it had been him. He preferred it that way. One evening, as he finished a late shift, he found Vilthera waiting near the maintenance lift. She wore simpler robes again, her authority markers dimmed. You should not be here, Elias said carefully. I wanted to speak to you, she replied. They stood in silence for a moment. You changed nothing on purpose, she said, and yet you changed everything. Elias shrugged. I just ran. Yes, she said softly, you did. She looked out through the station window at the stars. Among my people, she said, judges are trained to suppress instinct, to weigh endlessly. She turned to him. You reminded us of something we lost. Elias didn't know how to respond. Vilthera stepped back. The galaxy will test your kind, she said. It already has. She met his eyes. Do not lose what makes you dangerous. Then she left. Elias watched her go. He returned home that night and slept deeply. Far beyond Kepri Gate, councils debated. Policies shifted. New alliances formed. And at the center of it all was a simple truth recorded in countless official archives. A human saw something wrong and chose to act. That was enough.